Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana weather. It's about 4:15 on Saturday, and winter storm warnings have now been hoisted for the entire state of Indiana, and winter weather advisories to our south. This, of course, is an upgrade from the watch that was issued yesterday. Now, snow accumulation totals, the models lately have sort of backed off a little bit compared to what they were yesterday, but still giving us some decent snow accumulations in at least some of them, and we'll take a look at the data, and I'll sort of share with you my forecast and my opinion as to why some of these models I don't think can be trusted. Unfortunately, we've got sort of a little bit of agreement and a lot of model discrepancy right now, and hopefully we'll solve some of that later tonight. But unfortunately, this is just a system that the models are not getting a very good handle on, and yeah, it's as frustrating as I know it is to some of you that we can't pinpoint exactly the snow, even a decent range of snow totals for your area. It's even more frustrating for us as scientists. But this system is one that's very tricky, to say the least. Switch over to the regional view. Here's our snowmaker up here, and you see a wide swath of snow. This is along a cold front, and I'll just sort of back this out here for you a little bit and give you the overview of what's going on. Large area of low pressure here up in Canada that is dragging a very potent cold front with it. Sort of like this. Most of the snow is aligning up along that cold front. That's going to be moving our way. At the same time, you have a huge Arctic high pressure up in Canada that will be moving down this way as well. That's what's going to bring the bitter cold temperatures to us next week. And we've also got a developing low pressure system now in Texas. This low pressure is going to be riding up our way, and as that cold front slides over towards us, it's going to attach itself to that cold front and ride up it. Now, the position of that low and how it rides up the cold front is unfortunately something that the models are in a little bit of disagreement with at the time, and so as I've told you before, it just sort of depends. If you have the low down here in Texas, some of the models take it more like this, where the low tracks through the Appalachian region of Kentucky. Well, that brings a very heavy snow band more into the southern Indiana portion. If, on the other hand, the low tracks closer towards the Ohio River before it starts curving north, then that brings the heavier snow band more towards central and northern Indiana and leaves us with more of a minor accumulation event down here. And unfortunately, there is some model discrepancy in that right now. I will say this, with this strong Arctic high pressure moving in, I have a hard time believing that this low is going to go too far north. I don't think this low tracks through Indiana. I still think it tracks through Kentucky. It's just a question of how far it tracks. And right now, sort of seems like the best guess that we've got on this thing is that the low tracks in a fashion sort of similar to this, where it is a little bit still south of the Ohio River, and we do end up with some decent snowfalls for parts of us here in Indiana, but minor compared to those heavier snowfalls that now look like it will fall more in this region of Indiana. So let's take a look at the data, and we will see exactly why. All right, first thing I want to take a look at here is what type of precipitation we can expect. As I said, with that low tracking closer towards us, that's going to change a little bit of a precipitation type, because that's going to push in a little bit more of a warmer temperature profile in the atmosphere than what we were expecting. So here we are, we're starting off at 1 a.m. Tonight, and nothing into the area yet. The GFS, by the way, the GFS doesn't have a future radar product with this. The only thing that we can have on it is a precipitation type product to give us a little bit of a hint. We'll show you some future radars in a minute, but we'll take those with a grain of salt, as we do with everything. Here we move it forward in time. We're at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning. Here's the 32 freezing line. The GFS is aggressive and sort of warms us up here in southern Indiana, and so that it would be pretty much an all-rain event. Maybe rain with some wet snow mixed in, but nothing would accumulate, and likely mostly all rain closer towards the Ohio River. And then very quickly, by the time 1 o'clock comes around, you notice that the snow is starting to filter in. But we've stayed all rain according to this now in southern Indiana. And then very quickly between 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock that night, the heavy rain is off to our east, and it won't be heavy, I should say. The heavy snow has moved even through by this time. And so I personally think that with this low tracking this way, we are definitely going to see some rain with this. The question is, how far north does this rain go? Let me show you a few future radar products that will sort of help this out, and we'll put this into motion. And again, sometimes this is picky and doesn't like to move unless I refresh it here. So we'll do that, and you can see the snow this afternoon. There's that band that the radar is picking up on, setting up as we put this into motion. Here we come in. Here we are by here we go. Here we are at 4 a.m. in the morning, and you notice a little bit of rain moving in from our southwest into the area. Here we are at 7 a.m. Nothing much is happening yet, just a little bit of rain moving in. Central Indiana is starting to see a changeover, and really it looks like they stay all snow, I should say. But then by 9 a.m. we start to see maybe some even heavier rain push in, moderate to heavy rain potentially. And notice that this does not start changing us over to an all snow event for us in Indiana really until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So this is the high resolution NAM model, and whenever I show you the snow totals affected with this model, you'll see that it is very insignificant for southern Indiana. Now, as with always, I always say the phrase, take it with a grain of salt, because a model is a model. A model is not the real atmosphere. It is a model depiction of what it believes the atmosphere will be like. The NAM model has two things going against it. Number one, the NAM oftentimes gets what we call QPF heavy, quantity of precipitation forecast, basically the amount of precip that we get in with it. Sometimes it just goes crazy heavy on the amounts that we're going to get. And the other thing is sometimes it has a little bit of a warm bias to it. Personally, my opinion is this warms us up a little bit too much. Do think we warm up enough to get some rain, but I think the transition to rain happens quicker than this particular model is expecting. We can take a look at a couple of other models as well, and as you put these into motion, you see sort of very similar problems. Here we are by 9 a.m. We've got rain breaking out in southern Indiana, but then the transition really doesn't start to occur with this one even until later, and the snow lasts later. Personally, I think that's full of malarkey. One more that we have available, the ARW model, and as we put this into motion, you see a very similar type of thing. The rain moves in, but here we are by 1 in the afternoon. We're not changed over yet. All of these models are just a little bit too warm, and interestingly enough, the ARW, the NMM, which I just showed you, and the 4-kilometer NAM, the high-resolution NAM, they are all based off of the same core engine in their modeling capability. So personally, I think all of them are showing the same warm bias that I have a little bit of problems with. I do think that we will see some rain, but I do think that we start to change over a lot quicker than 4 or 5 in the afternoon, like these models are showing. I think the transition from all rain to snow will start to take place more like noon or 1 o'clock for most of us. And that will, of course, cut down on our snow totals, but if you're here in northern and central Indiana, that you'll still get them. Let's take a look real quick at what the models are saying. The Euro model is holding its own on snowfall totals, and you can see it's still pretty aggressive. It's given 5 inches to Evansville, and that's aggressive compared to the other ones for sure. It's given a good almost 6 inches of snow here in the Huntingburg area, and then heavy snow to our north is sort of the outlier right now on this. If you take a look at the Canadian model, it has shifted the heaviest snow totals well to our north and pretty much screwed us out of any accumulating snow, dusting to an inch with this model. I think this is way too warm in my personal opinion. If you take a look at the NAMs, high resolution NAM, the radar that I just showed you, again, you see that same type of thing. It's agreeing with the Canadian model in a very similar fashion. And the high resolution NAM pushes the heavy accumulating snows to our north, gives us next to nothing because it stays mostly rain. I think those two solutions are a little bit too warm. I'm favoring the GFS model on this one for once. I don't always favor the GFS. It has its share of problems. This time I think it's got a better handle on it than some of the other ones do. And it of course does have a sharp cutoff for us, but it again brings the heaviest of those accumulations more towards the north, but yet still keeps some of those accumulations for us. Basically, what I have done with my forecast is sort of shift everything just a little bit. Yesterday, I had the 6 to 12 inch line more down in here based on the low shifting itself to the northwest a little bit. I've kept the same totals. I've just shifted everything a little bit. And so I know these are wide variances, but this is just a very tricky forecast to be able to get out. In general, for most of southern Indiana here, from, say, the Evansville area, Du Bois County, points here into Washington County as well. Louisville, the Louisville area more like a 1 to 2 inch here with a very sharp cutoff here, 2 to 5 starting over into Floyd County and moving through this way, going into 4 to 8 inch swath as you get closer towards Vincennes, Washington, Lagodi area, up into Bedford and Seymour and Columbus. And then very quickly as you get into the Terre Haute area, Bloomington and north, you start into those heavier snows where you're more in toward that 6 to 12 inch plush. So basically the scenario with this is that the heaviest snow totals, the heaviest axis of snow has just shifted more towards the north. Now, honestly, if you get 5 inches of snow, that's still decently accumulating snow. And quite frankly, with the cold temperatures we are expecting, any snowpack that we get is going to be ridiculously cold. Talking about our temperatures, here we are at 7 p.m. tonight. It's cooled us down a little bit on the GFS, but you notice we actually warm a little bit overnight. The GFS takes us down to the low 30s, just above freezing by tomorrow morning. That would be enough to make it a rain or a rain-snow mix for us. Warms us up even a little bit to 34 by the 1 o'clock hour, but then very quickly after that, we go down from 34 at 1 to 22 by 7 o'clock that night. So once the snow finally does hit us, it's going to push through very quickly. And remember that cold air masses like this are very dense and oftentimes push through much faster than what the models want to hit on. So that's another reason why I think that the transition is going to occur a little bit faster than these models are indicating. The GFS is indicating a very similar the Euro is indicating, by the way, a very similar fashion to this, so I won't even show it to you. But then, just very quickly, as we put it into time, notice by Monday morning the negative temperatures come. Now, if we have a heavier snowpack, if the cold air does push through faster, and we get closer to that 5-inch total rather than that 2-inch total, then we're going to go below zero even farther, because snow is basically... It just allows the atmosphere to cool that much more, the heavier snowpack that you have. The less snowpack that you have, the far less lower your temperatures are going to go. So, and you can see this reflected in this whenever you've got here a -6 in Evansville, -7 in Huntingburg area, but a -13 up here in Terre Haute, where you've got that 6 to 12 inch band setting up even on the GFS. So no matter how you cut it, whether you're talking -7 or whether you're talking -13, that's just flipping cold. Let's also talk about wind chills, because that's another big thing we're going to want to talk about with this. Okay, my apologies. Whenever I went to click a button, I accidentally X'd out on this tab, so I had to reload it. But here we're looking at wind chills we're starting on Sunday afternoon, and you notice not too bad then. We're at 34 for the air temperature, only at 30 for the wind chill by Sunday. But once those winds really start to kick up and the cold weather plows in, just take a look at these wind chills infiltrate us. And so by the time you get down to Monday morning with still breezy conditions, we're talking wind chills of nearly 30 below in parts, even 40 and 45 below here up in Indiana. Folks, the real field temp with this is just going to be absolutely ridiculous. And if you get exposed to this type of wind chills for even 30 minutes, you can get frostbite on your hands. So if you have to go out at all on Monday morning, not only is the road conditions going to be very treacherous with any snow that we get, because the freezing temperatures are going to make it very hard to clean off. Make sure you wear a hat and gloves. This is just dangerous type of cold. And unfortunately, it looks like this brutal type of cold is going to stick around for days. Just notice how these negative wind chills stick around for a while. And it's not really until Wednesday until we start to warm up a little bit. Take a look at the 7-day forecast, southernindianaweather.com. Today is going to be your pleasant day. We warm up into the low 40s. Tomorrow, again, we warm up to maybe 33, 34 here in the southern part. going down to about -6 tomorrow night. For those of us who don't have as much snow, you get more snow, that temperature is going to go down even more, only making it to a depressing high of -2 on Monday, 11 below on Monday night, and then finally it starts to warm up. Hey, who would have thought 8 degrees felt good on Tuesday? But then as you warm up later in the week, a little bit more snow potentially on Thursday, but that's another story for another time. Stay tuned right here, more updates to come.